Cindy, I have just two things to say to you. I sold the house for $500,000 and bought a new one. Also, I've filed for divorce. So today we say goodbye.
After spending 3 months in the hospital, I arrived home to the surprising sight of strangers living in my house. I rang up my husband, Tony, right away, and he was joking around as he told me about these unbelievable post-facts. Although it was truly outrageous and shocking, I remained completely calm in my response. Can you even move out now? You're about to be arrested by the police. Tony's voice on the phone stopped for a moment, but he was already laughing again in just 3 seconds.
What are you talking about? Why would I need to be arrested? I heard you had an accident and were hospitalized. Did you hit your head badly? Maybe you should go back to the hospital and get your head checked.
My husband is the one who needs to get his head checked. I know all the stupid things he has done. I wasn't playing around when I told my husband about his arrest. I was utterly dumbfounded by his ignorance and prepared to strike back. A few days later, I decided to call my husband to have a proper discussion. Parking my car a bit away from the meeting place, I took a deep breath before starting our discussion. Tony, first of all, you can't just sell the house on your own, right? You didn't talk to me about it at all, did you?
The house is in my name, so there's no problem, right? It's my property, so no need for talking to you about it.
No, it's in my name too, as it's joint ownership. Without my consent, the house can't be sold.
True, it's also in your name, but that doesn't stop me from selling it. In fact, I've already sold it and got $500,000 for it.
With a triumphant smirk, my husband leaned back confidently.
Do you know how I managed to sell the house?
It was written all over his face, so I reluctantly asked him to explain. Then explain how you managed to sell the house.
Well, I'll only tell you once, so listen closely. I sold it privately. As you said, going through a realtor will require complicated procedures, but a private sale has no issues. How about that? Bet you didn't know.
My husband showed he was the boss by pointing at me. It had been about a year since he began looking down on me, so I was already used to his behavior by that point. With a vulgar laugh, he continued.
I work at my father's company and I'm considered a capable salesman there. For someone like me, selling a house or two is a piece of cake, and I even sold it for double the price. Life is easy, huh?
Is that so? But is that really okay? Selling a house privately like that can be legally invalidated, so the sale agreement is void.
What? That's not true. The buyer agreed to it too.
But I, a co-owner, didn't consent to it, so it's impossible. Plus, Tony, you sold it without even an appraisal for double its price. That's seriously problematic. The sale agreement is void and you'll have to refund the full amount. You might even face a compensation claim from the buyer. Suddenly his vulgar laughter stopped. His face turned pale and his hands trembled gradually. From his reaction it was clear he knew nothing about what he had done. If he had known, he wouldn't have attempted doing so.
Why do you know so much? You're lying, aren't you?
There's no benefit in lying to you here.
That's true. Then agree to it. If you consent to the house sale, everything will be resolved. We're a married couple, after all. We should help each other, right?
Didn't we get divorced? Have you forgotten that you filed the divorce papers?
True.
Even a capable salesman like him would be dismayed. Thinking only of himself led to this situation. Having already purchased a new home, my husband faced not only full repayment, but also potential compensation claims. Imagining this, his face turned even paler, and he began to panic. However, he quickly thought of something and spoke up.
Well, if it doesn't get discovered, it's fine, right? The buyer was an elderly person in his 60s. so he wouldn't notice. Yeah, I can just get away with it. I still have some money left. Maybe I could run away to another country.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Indeed, if it doesn't get discovered, you might just get away with it. Right then, a man appeared behind me. Seeing him left my husband speechless and wide-eyed with surprise. His reaction was more comical than I expected, and I couldn't help but burst out laughing. What's with your face? It's rude to our guest. Let me introduce him. This is Kevin Brown.
You don't need to introduce him to me. He's that old man I was talking about. The one I sold the house to. Why do you know him, Cindy?
Well, I'll only tell you once, so listen closely. While I was hospitalized, Mr. Brown visited me daily. He shared many stories, and I learned about you through him.
He visited you? Why would a stranger visit you? Don't tell me. You had an affair with this old man?
At that moment, Mr. Brown and I looked at each other and burst out laughing. My husband's dumb remarks were too much to bear. Instead of me, Mr. Brown turned to my husband and explained everything.
Tony, Cindy is a lifesaver to me. Her hospitalization was to save me. That's why I visited her. It's just that. I was surprised to learn you are Cindy's husband. I thought she was single, since you never visited her.
Mr. Brown spoke softly, but you could feel his anger. As he said, during my hospitalization, my husband never visited me once. Even before my hospitalization, his attitude was cold, and he barely listened to me, so he probably intended to abandon me from the start.
Mr. Brown, please don't be so mad. I was just too busy with work to visit her at the hospital. Besides, it was just a fracture, right? It's not about the severity of the injury. It's unthinkable to just ignore your wife while she's hospitalized. What I'm trying to say is, your behavior clearly shows how you've consistently disregarded Cindy. Being deceived by you is truly humiliating. You claimed the house sold for $500,000, but it was actually only $250,000. I will definitely sue and make sure you pay back every penny.
Kevin's words and stare got more intense, and my husband was totally lost. He was clearly not letting my husband escape, but my husband looked like he was really trying to find a way out. Seeing this, I decided to make another move. Speaking of which, Tony, tell me about the divorce papers. How did you submit them?
Well, I just signed our names and submitted it.
I thought so. So you wrote my name yourself, right? That's forgery of a sealed private document and using a forged document. That's a serious crime. I've already filed a complaint.
What? A crime? A complaint? You mean the arrest you mentioned was...
The day I returned home from the hospital, when Tony told me I filed the divorce papers, I immediately became suspicious. Although our relationship had cooled down, Tony and I had never spoken of divorce. Naturally, I had no recollection of signing any divorce papers, so the only conclusion was that Tony had signed them on his own. By the way, regarding the house sale, I could also file a complaint for fraud. The police are quite competent, so I wonder if you'll be arrested soon. Tony, you've really done a lot, haven't you?
Listen, Cindy, let's forget about the divorce. I'll just annul the divorce right away. You don't want to divorce me, do you? Let's just let bygones be bygones.
Amazed at his frivolous proposal, I was utterly dismayed. There was no way to undo what had been done. Tony was intent on abandoning me, and after such actions it was impossible to continue our marriage. Moreover, Tony was still hiding something significant. At that moment, I decided to delve deeper. No need to annul our divorce, Tony. I'm prepared too, with my own divorce papers. Were you not going to file them? I was planning to file them anyway. Could you sign them right now? And don't forget the compensation.
What? Why do you have these divorce papers already? And what do you mean, compensation? There's no way I'm paying that.
Oh, you thought it hadn't been discovered? Susan is her name, right? Your affair partner. She's quite beautiful. Tony, you really did something, didn't you? With a specific name mentioned, my husband froze as if time had stopped. Yes, he had an affair partner named Susan. The house sale, the purchase of a new home, the divorce, all were for his affair partner. Before my 3-month hospitalization, Tony had been secretly having an affair. That was why he had become cold towards me. Tony assumed he wouldn't get caught, looking down on me with utter contempt. I glared at him with deep disdain. He seemed momentarily intimidated, but soon retorted.
And don't make false accusations. You don't have any proof, do you? I don't know any woman named Susan. Claiming compensation based on your wild imagination, that's fraud.
Are you sure you want to say that? You might regret it later. It would be better to just apologize and pay the compensation.
What? Are you threatening me?
I'm just giving you advice. You definitely had an affair, and I'm about to prove it. Saying this, I turned around and pointed to a location. There was my car, parked a bit away from the meeting place. Suddenly, the car door swung open vigorously. A petite woman of about 5 feet tall, as beautiful as any actress, emerged. Hello, Tony. Did you forget about me? It's harsh to forget such a passionate night, don't you think?
Cindy, you brought Susan here in your car? That explains why you parked a bit away.
You really hadn't noticed, had you, Tony? By the way, I had Susan's phone and my phone on a call, and let her listen over the speaker. Everything was perfectly clear. After investigating my husband's affair, I reached Susan. And before confronting my husband, I had contacted Susan. When I revealed that I was Tony's wife, Susan was genuinely shocked. That's because my husband had lied to her, saying he was single. Susan thought their relationship was serious, but realizing she had been deceived, she was furious. She apologized to me on her knees and agreed to help punish my husband, leading to this moment. I will be a witness. Now you have no choice but to admit it, right? Shall I bring out the evidence? My phone is full of lovely memories with you, from dinners at high-end restaurants to pictures of you sleeping in bed. Tony, there's no escape now. Just admit your guilt and apologize to everyone. Then face the consequences. I'll demand a divorce and compensation from you, and you'll have to repay the full amount for the house sale to Mr. Brown. After finishing, my husband knelt down vigorously. After a few seconds of silence, he tentatively spoke up.
I have a proposal. Could we arrange a payment plan? I really don't have any money right now. I promise, I'll pay, please. My husband looked really small as he begged desperately. Mr. Brown and Susan frowned upon seeing him. Neither knew that my husband had bought a new home. They thought he still had the $500,000. Mr. Brown, Tony bought a new home. Plus, he's been to high-end restaurants multiple times to impress Susan, so he's broke. He has no means to repay. Is that true? Then we have no choice but to file a complaint right away. That's disappointing. Tony, take care. No. Wait a minute. Didn't I say I'd pay in installments? I have a way to pay. I'm a top salesman at Holmes Corporation, remember? I gave you my business card when we dealt with the house, so please, be patient. Desperate to stop the complaint, my husband begged. His father's company, Holmes Corporation, is well known as a major business. If he's recognized there, maybe he could indeed pay. However, I shook my head and advised Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, don't believe him. Tony definitely can't pay. Go ahead and file the complaint without hesitation. Cindy, how can you be so sure? I can definitely pay it back. I've worked seriously and have a track record to prove it. What? But you're going to be fired soon. You'll be unemployed, so I don't think you can claim you'll definitely be able to pay it back. What? Me fired? Oh, that's impossible. Don't make decisions for me. Do you think I decided this? Tony, you really know nothing. Just wait. I'll make it clear to you soon. At this point, I pointed again to my car parked some distance away. Just like before, the car door swung open vigorously. This time, an elderly couple stepped out.
Immediately, my husband's face turned pale, and his body trembled uncontrollably. The elderly couple were his parents. As my in-laws approached slowly, their fierce expressions created a tense atmosphere around us.
Dad? Mom? Why are you here? We heard from Cindy. We were waiting in her car, listening to the conversation over the speaker. Tony, it seems you have done something unthinkable. Selling the house without any discussion with Cindy and even filing for divorce on your own? Moreover, you handled the house sale privately. What were you thinking, causing so much trouble for so many people? Seriously, not just Susan, but my parents were in on this too?
The incident had already been reported to my in-laws. I had to make sure they came here today to give my husband the surprise.
I'm utterly disappointed in you. You told us everything was fine between you two, and even that was a lie? You will never cross my company or our household ever again. You're fired from the company. I'm fired? Wait, Dad. Sure, I cheated, but what does that have to do with the company? Please rethink this. Besides, the new house was also for you and Mom. I bought it thinking about your retirement. I want you both to stay healthy forever. My husband seemed to be trying to win his parents over. He was pretending to be a good husband with a fabricated reason for the purchase, but it didn't resonate at all with the in-laws. Instead, they seemed even angrier, glaring at him with a fearsome expression. Tony, no matter what you say, you're fired. Reflect on yourself and find a new job. Understood? This is a joke. Do you know how much I've contributed to the company? We were able to overcome tough times because I was there. And now, you're just going to throw me away like that? What is this?
My husband vehemently expressed his anger to his father. It's true that he had been working hard. He had produced results at Holmes Corporation, a major company. According to what the in-laws told me, my husband had been an excellent student, always studying hard. All his efforts were to work at his father's company and eventually take it over. Naturally, his parents were aware of his intentions. Yet his father spoke to him firmly.
Yes, I am grateful to you, Tony. You have worked hard. I've been tough on you, but you followed without complaint. Right? Then don't fire me. I intend to repay Mr. Brown. I'll change my attitude and work hard. No, that's not enough. I'll say it again, you're fired. Give it up, Tony. Why? I'm begging here. Cindy, don't tell me you said something unnecessary, right? Tell me the truth.
Now my husband's anger turned towards me. He seemed desperate. Of course, I hadn't said anything unnecessary. Apart from this incident, there were reasons why my father-in-law had to fire him. House sale, new home purchase, divorce, affair, and one more thing. My husband had committed a serious crime. Tony, it's your turn to confess. Stealing company funds and extorting a coworker.
What? He stole from the company? You mean he embezzled funds?
And he was extorting a coworker too? Is that true? Yes, it appears so. There was an internal whistleblower. One of the subordinates he was extorting gathered the courage to stand up. And then one thing led to another. That was the reason why my father-in-law had no choice but to fire him. My husband had reached a point of no return. Now that everything was out in the open, there was no way for him to escape responsibility. My husband looked around at everyone's faces, but I shook my head slightly. Seeing that, he seemed to realize his situation and collapsed to his knees. Apologize, Tony. That's all you can do for now. After that, you must atone for your sins and start over.
No, I don't want to be caught by the police. Come on, Cindy, do something. I'm still your husband and you're my wife, right? Dad, Mom, help me too, please. Don't bring up being Cindy's husband when it suits you. Like Cindy said, all you can do is apologize and atone for your sins. Relying on your wife only when you're in trouble after you file for divorce on your own. That's truly pathetic.
Kevin Brown and Susan also looked at my husband with pity. It couldn't be helped. He had only thought of himself until the very end. Watching my husband silenced completely, my heart lightened slightly. However, in the next moment, a huge shock hit me.
Quit being so full of yourself just because you think you're right. Stop lecturing me.
Suddenly standing up and shouting, my husband lunged at me. I couldn't react in time and was caught by him. He held onto my collar so tight that I couldn't talk or breathe properly because my neck was being squeezed. I was about to lose consciousness when suddenly my husband was thrown into the air and I was freed. Coughing from the struggle, I looked towards the person who had thrown my husband. It was Susan.
Tony, I didn't know you were such a jerk. A man who raises his hand to a woman is the lowest of the low. I will never forgive you.
Everyone was stunned, to say the least. Seeing the petite Susan, only 5 feet tall, effortlessly throw my husband was quite a sight. Actually, Susan was a total beast at judo and ended up winning the national high school championship. The reason she started judo was because a friend of hers was being harassed by her classmate. Since then, she had been throwing men who dare to harass women. It's like that saying, kindness overcomes strength, was written about her.
That was incredible. What a throw. Cindy, are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. It was quite a shock, though. Should we call the police? This is assault, right?
Yes, he attacked a defenseless woman, so he can't complain. Let's dial 911.
Wait, please. I was wrong. I'll do anything. Just don't call the police.
Oh, sorry, I've already dialed 911. If you have something to say, you can make your excuses to the police.
What have I done? Someone help me.
As Tony sobbed and expressed his regret, everyone collectively sighed deeply. And like that, a day that seemed long yet short drew to a close. Afterwards, I formally divorced Tony. He was criminally charged by Kevin for the house sale issue and ended up deeply in debt due to compensation. He had to let go of his newly bought house but was still buried in debt. Tony was utterly devastated and no one was there to help him. It was entirely his own doing. He would likely live a lonely life from then on. But the story didn't end there. Tony came begging me for a reconciliation.
Cindy, I've realized recently that I really need you. You must be lonely too, right? You've always been a homemaker and life must be hard. So let's get back together.
It's really funny. Hasn't he learned his lesson yet? Those were the first words that came to mind, but I was too appalled to even voice them. Being by myself is tough, but let's be real, there's no way Tony and I are getting back together. Zero chance. Plus, Tony doesn't understand me at all. I decided to inform him of my current situation. There's no problem with my living situation, you know. I've gone back to work.
What? Back to work? But you were a full-time housewife, right?
Before dating you, I worked in real estate. You know, Norman Real Estate, right?
Norman Real Estate? That's a major firm, isn't it? Ah, that's why you know so much about real estate. I mean, you're more skilled than I am.
Tony seemed to be at a loss for words over the phone, but then he seemed to have an idea.
So you're making good money now, right? Please, help me out. If your workplace pays well, I'll do anything you say if you help me.
Ha, you really don't understand anything, do you? It's because you're being selfish that you're in this situation. Tony, you need to change yourself first. Don't contact me ever again. Goodbye. Right up until I hung up, Tony was shouting something, but I didn't hesitate to block his number. Now I'm living alone and thoroughly enjoying my own time. The house that Tony sold without permission was returned and I sold it as part of the property division. My job is going well and I'm enjoying every day. Recently I started learning judo as a new challenge. Of course, Susan is my instructor. Susan and I have gotten really close, almost like we're partners in crime. I decided to take up judo when I heard she was teaching it. It seemed like a good way to practice self-defense and, more importantly, to strengthen my spirit. Things got out of hand mostly because of Tony, but I also played a part. When Tony's affair came to light, I should have confronted him seriously. If I had acted sooner, perhaps a different future could have been possible. It's too late for what-ifs, but I was also inspired to change myself. Just then, I received a message from Mr. Brown.
Thank you for being my savior. I'm glad I met you. You saved me.
This is what the message included. Honestly, Tony's affair left me deeply wounded, but Mr. Round's straightforward feelings inspired me to start a new life. I just want to appreciate every moment and be real with myself and everyone else. That's all that's on my mind right now.